Okay, well, hello everybody, and welcome to the November edition of the Mayor's Monthly Video. November's a busy month for me and my family and for, I think, a lot of people, so why don't we just get into this thing and talk about what we're going to talk about. So, going to start off with, yes, it's a busy month. Do a quick honor of veterans. Today's November the 12th. Yesterday was Veterans Day, so I'd like to talk a little bit about that. Little spiel on communication and try to tie it into why I do this video. Then update you on some citizen concerns that we've had in the past, and then we'll wrap it up with talk about some of the community events that's going on in November. So let's move right on. So yes, November is a busy month, especially for me, and I'm sure it is for you too. So just kind of fill you in on what November is for us. November the 2nd is my daughter's birthday. On the 4th, Kathy and I celebrated our 52nd wedding anniversary. Can't believe that she put up with me for 52 years, but I thank God every day that she has. And then, of course, November the 5th was the big day. That was our presidential election. That was election day. And then on November the 8th, I believe it was the 8th, the Shelby County High School participated in the first round state playoffs. Unfortunately, they did not prevail in that game, but they had a great season. I want to congratulate them and Coach Zeb for the great season that they had. We had Veterans Day yesterday on the 11th, and then today, the 12th, is my birthday. On the 20th is my sister's birthday, and then all of us are going to be celebrating Thanksgiving on the 26th, 28th. I'll have to double check my calendar on that, but later this month we'll be celebrating that. So a lot of stuff going on in November, and we're now going to all be getting ready for the holiday season with Christmas as well. Okay, so I want to spend a few minutes honoring our veterans. On Friday, I had the opportunity to participate in a program at Columbiana Middle School honoring Veterans Day and the veterans from the local community. It was a really great program, so I want to thank the middle school and Principal Dustin Smith and everybody who had a role in that, the students, the teachers, and everything. They did a really great job. Had a great turnout of veterans from the community. But, you know, Veterans Day means a lot for me, as I'm sure it does for a lot of you. And when I think of Veterans Day, the veterans I honor, I go all the way back to my grandfather. He was only 17 years old when he was wounded in World War I in the Argonne Forest in France. He spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. My father was a disabled veteran from World War II, and my namesake, Staff Sergeant David Mitchell, and uncle, was killed in the Battle of the Bulge in World War II. And then, of course, I had the honor to serve as well. So when I think of Veterans Day, I think of them, but I also think of a lot of folks that I served with, just ordinary people who did extraordinary things. I think of Captain Steve Phillis, who was shot down and killed during Desert Storm on February 15th, 1991. I think of Lieutenant Rob Sweet, who was shot down a few minutes before Steve. Steve was conducting search and rescue operations for Rob when he was shot down, his wingman, and Rob retired, I think, a couple of years ago from the Air Force, and when he retired, he was the last serving prisoner of war in the United States Air Force. So I guess if you're going to be last at something, that's a good thing to be last at. I think about my roommate during the Persian Gulf War, Captain Paul Johnson. He retired as Major General Paul Johnson. Paul was a recipient of the Air Force Cross. He led a much publicized rescue operation to rescue a downed Navy F-14 pilot deep into Iraq. He escorted the rescue helicopter. He found first the pilot, the downed pilot, then he led a rescue helicopter out there to pick him up and also had to defend them from being attacked by the Iraqi army. Paul, just an ordinary guy from Gadsden, Alabama, country, small-town preacher, and did extraordinary things in the Air Force. I think of retired Colonel Bill Andrews. Bill was the second Air Force Cross recipient during Desert Storm. There were no medals of honor during Desert Storm. Air Force Cross is the Service Cross, is the highest award that any military member can receive from their service, and then it goes up to Congress after that. Bill was the second Air Force Cross recipient. He was a pilot training classmate of mine, so I'm proud to have known both of the Air Force Cross recipients. I think of retired Air National Guard Brigadier General Allison Hickey. Allison was a pilot training classmate of mine also, like Bill Andrews, and she was Allison Hillsman in those days. But Allison was literally broke the glass ceiling for women in the Air Force. She was in the first class of women at the Air Force Academy. She was the first female graduate of the Air Force Academy to complete pilot training and get her wings. And after she retired, she also served as Undersecretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs for Veterans Benefits. And finally, I think of retired Colonel Rick McDowell. Rick is a Columbiana native. Some of you probably have kids who play ball at the sports complex on McDowell Road. That's named for Rick's family. Rick was a prisoner of war during Vietnam, shot down in Vietnam, and I had the privilege of serving with Rick. We were both stationed at Myrtle Beach and deployed to the Persian Gulf for Desert Shield and Desert Storm. We were in different squadrons. Rick was the commander of the 355th Fighter Squadron. So all of those people are ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And I've got a couple little pictures. You can't see much, but it's people that I served with. There's a picture here of a bunch of guys sitting on an airplane. That was a Cold War picture. The picture was actually taken in Iceland. It wasn't a Cold War because we were in Iceland. But there are people in that photograph, and it's very small, you wouldn't be able to see them, that basically changed the direction of the Strategic Arms Limitation talks, the SALT talks, in the 1980s during the height of the Cold War to try to control nuclear weapons. And they were able to do that by intercepting a Bear bomber that nobody had ever seen before and identifying that they had the capability to carry air-launched cruise missiles. And then in the bottom picture, again, some people that I served with. Kneeling down in the middle of the first row is a guy named Steve Rainey. Steve was a former Air Force test pilot. He was the first guy to fly the F-22, which is the world's premier Generation 6 air superiority fighter in the world today. And again, those are just ordinary people who just did extraordinary things. And that's all of our veterans, all those people that was at Columbiana Middle School with me earlier this week, and all the people in your family that have served, they all have done something extraordinary. And then I think this picture on the left, Generations of Valor, kind of sums it all up, where you have one veteran from the world, what we call the greatest generation, showing his thanks and gratitude to a more recent veteran and his injuries. So congratulations and thank you to all who served. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about communication, and I want to tie that into why I do this monthly video. It's a way to help me communicate with you. In my opinion, you can't communicate enough. And you have to work at it. It's a very difficult thing to do to communicate effectively. You know, in Columbiana, we don't have our own newspaper. We have the Shelby County Reporter. And most people today get that online. It is difficult. We don't have a newspaper, most of us, that's delivered to our house every day. But then there are other people who don't have access to the internet and can't see it. So we have all of our meetings and whatnot that we do, like our city council meetings and our board meetings and things of that nature. Those are all covered by the Open Meetings Act so that people can come see those things and learn what's going on. But I realize that you can't come to all the council meetings. Most people can't. Most people don't want to, frankly. So we live stream it on the internet. Unfortunately, everybody, like I said, doesn't have access to the internet. So we record it. If you miss it live, you can go back and you can look at it. And the object there is for transparency. It's so you can see exactly what we're doing and what's going on in a way for us to communicate. Now, another effective way to communicate is to always reinforce it. Like I reinforce things in this video. I also reinforce them in the mayor's article that I do in the monthly newspaper, The Bugler. Now, The Bugler is changing over to a magazine format. It's only going to be printed quarterly from now on, with the first ones hopefully coming out in December of this year. But there's some interesting quotes on here from various people about communication. At the top of this silly picture here, it says, "Listen with curiosity, speak with honesty, and act with integrity." That's a key to good, effective communication. The other one is a quip that a lot of people have been given credit for, so I just put various because many people have said something similar to this. But I think it's attempting to show you how difficult effective communication can be when it says, "I know that you believe you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure that you realize that what you heard is not what I meant." Now, that's a very confusing statement, which again, just I think lets people know that you have to read that several times, maybe repeat it several times to get what it's trying to say, and that's one of the issues with communications. I've used this picture, a slide like this, for years, and maybe even in decades. I found it on the internet, posted it on here. A couple of things, so here's this kid trying to communicate on a microphone, big mouth, got a haircut. He kind of looks like I looked when I was about that age, the big mouth and the short haircut and everything. Maybe that's one of the reasons that attracted it to me. But communication is critical, and now I want to tie you to why it's critical. I was at a event recently, and a city business leader and I were talking, and one of the things he said to me was, "Hey," and this is a paraphrase, I don't recall exactly how he said it, "the city needs to get more grant funding so that we can fix aging infrastructure and revitalize the aging buildings in town so that we can get more businesses in those things." And I said, "Well, we do try to get a lot of grants, and it's difficult getting grant money and using public funds on private property to fix buildings. There are circumstances where you can do that." He says, "Well, you don't need to use city money. You just need to get grant money, and therefore you won't have that problem." Well, it's not that way, because most of those grants are public funds that come to us from different government agencies. But I talk about in this video, I talk about it at our city council meetings, and I talk about it in those Bugler articles, and I let people know about all the grants that the city of Columbiana is receiving. And so I put this chart on here because for fiscal year 2025, we've got $6 million of grant funding in our budget. Now, the revenue in our budget is only a little over $15 million so that's about 38% of the total budget. Now, we've already spent about $750,000, so 33% is what we're going to spend of grant money in fiscal year 2025. I categorized it here. I'm not going to go through all of them or the types of the grants, but I categorized it in infrastructure. Nearly $4 million is infrastructure that this person came up to me and says, "Hey, we need to get grant money for infrastructure." Then the next biggest ticket item is public safety, which is one of the most important things for our fire department and police department. And then last, to make it a good place for people to live, work, and play, the third largest item is recreation for lighting for the sports complex. So my point is, no matter how much you communicate, you can never communicate enough. So I'll ask you to maybe share some of this with your friends. You'll hear me say this again, because it's really important that people know what we're trying to do to make this a better place and how we're spending their money. Okay, I've talked about this in the past. A couple of citizens have talked about, hey, we need some street lights on Jefferson Street and we need street lights on Kobe Lane. I explained to them I have to work with Alabama Power. They kind of work at their own pace, if you will. But the good news is we are going to get those street lights. Bad news is they're not up yet. Alabama Power came out and met with us. They wanted to do a citywide street light assessment. And the biggest challenge is going to be the light at Kobe Lane. There's a pole there, but it doesn't have access to power for the light. They're going to have to actually run an underground cable to that pole so that we can get light at the intersection of Kobe Lane and the Highway 25 bypass. And chances are the power company is going to wait and do both of those lights at the same time. Hopefully they'll do Jefferson Street first, because there is a pole with a transformer and power there that they can put it on, and then they'll come out and do the light at Kobe Lane. So hopefully we'll see that soon. Took longer than I had hoped it would, but it is getting done. So I just wanted to give everybody an update on that. Okay, community events. November 8th, as I mentioned, the high school participated in the football playoffs first rounds. Like I said, unfortunately, didn't turn out the way we would like, but congratulations on a great season. November 9th, the high school cross-country team competed in the state championships and did pretty well. I think the boys finished 8th, and I think the girls finished 11th out of the entire state. Tomorrow I'll be hosting the Shelby County Mayors Association at the Old Mill Square, and then we've got Thanksgiving coming up. So that's about all that's going on for November, and that's a lot. So I hope you have a great November and a great holiday season, and happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I hope you have a blessed holiday, and if you have anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on the website. You can email me directly. My email address is also on the website. So have a great holiday, and I'll see you next month.